Karen was shrieking like a kettle possessed, zip-tying my livestock gate at dawn as if she'd discovered a portal to hell on my land. Gerald stood behind her with a smirk and dollar store walkie-talkie while Terry flailed his clipboard like it could summon bylaws from thin air. I sipped coffee in my bathrobe, watching them lock their own doom. That gate wasn't a fence, it was bait. And congratulations, HOA, you just walked into a trap 8 months in the making. It was 6:32 a.m. when I spotted the glow of neon vests bobbing through the dust, like radioactive marshmallows who had taken a wrong turn at a bureaucrat convention. 3 of them. The OJ president with a God complex and a receding hairline that tried to escape his opinions. Behind him waddled Marlene, who sold scented candles that all smelled like expired regret. And rounding out the trio was Terry, a substitute PP teacher who treated his clipboard like a weaponized diploma. Each one held a different prop of suburban authority: duct-taped walkie-talkies, a crumpled printed notice, and what looked suspiciously like zip ties from a Dollar Tree bin. I was standing on my porch, barefoot, still cradling my first coffee of the day, when Gerald dramatically looped the zip tie through my livestock gate's rusty latch, like he was chaining up a wild animal that might escape into reason. The gate creaked under the strain, not from fear, but from age. I'd built it myself last summer out of salvaged barn metal and spite, and now here they were, declaring dominion over it like conquistadors on HOA payroll. "You were notified," Gerald chirped with a smugness that could curdle milk. He dangled a notice in front of him like a magician performing a low-budget summons. I didn't even look at it. The thing was wrinkled, half-ripped, and written in Comic Sans. That font alone should have invalidated the whole operation. I didn't yell. I didn't argue. I didn't even sip my coffee dramatically. I just nodded and turned around, walking back toward the house. Duke, my half-lab, half-chaos dog, gave a confused bark and resumed chewing on what remained of a football he'd stolen from a passing jogger 2 weeks ago. Inside, I poured a fresh cup of coffee and opened the file folder I'd prepped exactly 248 days ago, labeled in bold, underlined, and laminated for pettiness. Survival, 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 map, and property. Right, juicy. See, that gate wasn't there to keep me in or out. It was bait. And this morning, they'd swallowed the hook, the line, and the pole with the kind of blind confidence usually reserved for toddlers in superhero capes. What they didn't know, and what would haunt them soon, is that the very road they had just secured with their smug padlock was mine. Not metaphorically, not spiritually, legally, as in filed, stamped, and blessed by Carter County Records with a Ray seal and a lady named Judy who triple checks everything. 8 months ago, while these clipboard crusaders were debating whether plastic flamingos were a visual disturbance, I was quietly working with a private surveyor. We walked the property line, examined dusty deed layers older than Gerald's last haircut, and found gold buried under bureaucratic debris. The easement, expired. The access, illegal. The road, mine. And that gate? Well, that gate was never about blocking me. It was a mirror. I just needed someone arrogant enough to walk into their own reflection and declare it progress. They thought they were locking me out, but what they locked was their own fate, and the timer had already started. 3 years ago, the only thing on this land louder than the crickets was the silence. The kind of heavy, unbothered quiet that smells like dirt, diesel, and second chances. When I first walked the property, with my boots sinking just slightly into the loamy edge of the old cattle trail, I wasn't thinking about traps or legal warfare. I was thinking, finally, a place where no one gave a damn if my fence leaned or my rooster crowed before sunrise. But I've always believed peace doesn't last long when stupidity is well-funded. See, before I even signed the check, I hired a real lawyer, one of those gray-haired fellows who smells like law books and mistrust. His only hobby was proving people wrong with footnotes. We spent 2 weeks crawling through the paperwork like archaeologists, brushing off layers of badly scanned surveys, contradictory signatures, and a cocktail napkin sketch someone once submitted as an official boundary clarification. That's when we found it, a dusty clause buried in the corner of a plat map from 1986. Turns out, the tiny strip of road the HOA used as their personal parade route, it wasn't theirs. It had once been a temporary easement granted under handshake and goodwill to let construction vehicles pass while the original rancher still lived. But when Old Man Trask died, the easement died with him. No renewal, no reissue, just expired, like milk left on a sunny porch. And when I bought the land, it reverted quite legally completely back to me. That discovery didn't spark vengeance right away. It sparked caution. I knew better than to throw a legal grenade into a nest of clipboard-wielding zealots without a paper trail long enough to wrap around their clubhouse. So I planned. I walked the border at sunrise and sunset. I called in a private surveyor. We charted every inch, placed corner markers, snapped drone footage, took time-stamped photos. I laminated things that didn't need a laminating just to feel prepared. Then I installed 2 cameras, both hidden so neatly in the fence posts that even Duke couldn't sniff them out. They weren't for security, they were for proof, because I knew one thing. Given enough time, someone from that HOA would get drunk on authority and do something profoundly dumb. And wouldn't you know it, the HOA didn't just drink from that cup, they built a brewery on it. Over the next year, their rules escalated from absurd to Orwellian. They passed regulations on how tall a trash can could be if viewed from the street, declared barn odors visual disturbances, and even tried to fine my neighbor Lucille because her chickens crowed in a threatening tone. At one point, they introduced a dry hay curfew, no mowing or baling after 4 p.m. due to scent pollution. I wish I were kidding. It was like they took a BuzzFeed quiz titled, "Which tyrannical regime are you?" and picked suburban despot on purpose. But I smiled through it, nodded at the ridiculous flyers, tacked them to my fridge like crayon art from a confused child. Because while they postured and puffed, I was compiling, building my little dossier, brick by brick, receipt by receipt. They weren't just annoying, they were illegally territorial, and I had the receipts. At precisely 12:07 p.m. on a Wednesday that smelled like dust and defiance, I marched out with a hammer in one hand and a laminated notice in the other. The sun was high, the gravel was hot, and my lawn chair was already set up 15 feet back in the shade with a jug of sweet tea waiting. I nailed the toll notice next to the HOA's shiny padlock with a little more force than necessary. Not because I was mad, but because I knew how much they hated. The sign was clear, concise, and blessed by my lawyer. Accessing roadway 12B constitutes unauthorized use of private property. Effective immediately, a toll of $200, 0 cents per vehicle per day will be enforced. Payment via QR code below. Violators will be subject to further legal action. Questions? Contact Attorney Lewis C. Godwin, ESQ. Underneath was the smirking face of a gopher from a clip art website just to keep things light. I didn't have to wait long. By 12:43, the first car rolled up, a blue delivery van with a driver who looked like he regretted every decision that led him to this particular job on this particular street. He leaned out the window, read the sign, then reversed with all the urgency of someone backing away from a beehive. 5 minutes later, a beige SUV approached. The driver stepped out, read the notice twice, took a picture, and called someone. She didn't speak, just stared at me while her phone connected. I raised my tea in greeting. She did not wave back. Within 2 hours, the neighborhood group chat was lighting up like a Christmas tree at a power surge. Screenshots of the toll sign were flying around. Some residents were furious, others confused, and a few brave souls started asking the dangerous question, wait, do we even own that road? By 4:30 p.m., the HOA called an emergency board meeting, and by meeting, I mean a panic huddle in their beige clubhouse that smells like burnt Keurig pods and carpet glue. That's when she appeared. Poet Karen, vice president of the HOA, tyrant in khakis and owner of the most aggressively slanted sunglasses west of the Mississippi. She strutted down the path like she was walking into a courtroom drama where she played both judge and star witness. With one hand, she pulls in front of the gate, padlock gleaming in the background like it belongs in a Bond film, and snapped a selfie. The caption read, "Problem solved, property secured." The emojis, 3 padlocks and 1 American flag. She posted it with a smile. She had no idea it would end up in court. It was Saturday, 3:00 p.m. sharp, when the first whiff of hickory smoke drifted across the gravel like a peace offering dipped in sauce. I set up 2 grills, a folding table loaded with ribs, brisket, sweet tea, and enough cornbread to feed a small militia. Right beside the padlocked gate. Not across from it, not near it, beside it. A cookout, on contested ground. If the HOA had a rule book, this would have ripped a hole straight through the spine. I didn't send formal invitations. I didn't need to. The smell did all the talking. By 3:30, folks started showing up. First Ron, the mechanic, with a six-pack and a grin. Then Denise from 2 roads over carrying deviled eggs in a folding chair. About damn time someone fed the resistance, she joked. I handed her a paper plate and pointed to the pulled pork. Then came the curious ones, the fence sitters, the HO light crowd. First, a guy in loafers who once reported me for a visually offensive chicken coop, now quietly asking if he could try the coleslaw. I let him. Everyone deserves a redemption, Art. 10 minutes later, another board member, I think his name was Marty, though I always called him Clipboard 4 in my head, hovered near the gate with a conflicted look on his face. He didn't speak, just took a rib, nodded solemnly, and backed away like he was stealing from a church potluck. And then came the drama. Gerald, yes, that Gerald, the one who zip-tied my gate shut like he was reenacting an action movie, showed up in full HOA battle gear. Pastel polo, white New Balance sneakers, and a face redder than my barbecue sauce. He strutted in, pointed at the grill like it owed him money, and declared, "You can't host a public event on restricted property." I offered him a hot dog. He slapped it out of my hand. That's when my buddy Clay, former fire marshal and current rib enthusiast, stood up and said, "Then leave. Gerald, it's not like we invited you." Gerald scoffed, grabbed a folding chair like he was going to prove something, and promptly tripped over a root. The chair bent, his knee buckled, and down he went in a glorious slow-motion collapse that landed him square in a puddle of spilled lemonade and pride. 3 people caught it on video. One added to Curb Your Enthusiasm theme. Within the hour, it had 12,000 views. I didn't post it. But I didn't stop anyone either. By sunset, the gate wasn't just a line between properties. It was a line between people who still believed in fake power and those who had finally tasted freedom, literally and figuratively. Kids were playing cornhole, neighbors swapped gossip over brisket, and someone pulled out a Bluetooth speaker to play Johnny Cash. Karen showed up near the end, arms crossed like she was absorbing heat through sheer posture. She didn't say a word, just stood outside the gate, watching everyone have fun without her. But this wasn't the end. You think it ends with a barbecue? Nope, this was just the appetizer. The main course was still on the stove. It was about to boil over. I was halfway through slicing a peach cobbler when the first email landed in my inbox. Subject line, "You didn't get this from me." No signature, no greeting. Just a PDF thread of HOA board emails that read like a rejected season of Succession, except with fewer yachts and more typos. Apparently the padlock stunt never formally voted on. Just 3 board members, Karen Gerald and someone named Deborah, who always looked like she smelled something sour, decided it was urgent community action, their words. The evidence they submitted, a 15-year-old Google Earth screenshot with a red circle drawn in crayon. Crayon. One file literally said, "Gate Zone," in Comic Sans. Oh, and the cherry on top, Gerald had sent a group selfie the morning of the lockup with the caption, "Got him lol." These were the people trying to lecture me about civic responsibility. I laughed so hard I nearly knocked over my sweet tea. But the emails didn't stop there. The next leak was financial. A spreadsheet clearly pulled from someone's very serious HOA admin desktop folder detailed recent expenditures from the Neighborhood Beautification Fund. I'll give you 3 guesses what it showed. A $9,000 0 cents line item for shared pergola and relaxation space. Only the shared space was Karen's backyard with a jacuzzi and a stone fire pit. I checked my own backyard. Just Duke the dog and in a tire swing that had seen better days. At this point, I wasn't mad. I was professionally insulted. So I did what any calm, calculating man with 87 hours of surveillance footage would do. I built a website. It was simple. Black text, white background, titled boldly across the top, "Trespass Tally." Below it, a live running total of every car, bike, scooter, and HO-issued golf cart that had crossed my land since the Great Padlock Incident. Timestamps, license plate snapshots, estimated toll amounts. There was even a small donation button for anyone who felt morally compelled to support my fight for property rights. Turns out some people really hate HOAs. um, Within 24 hours, the site had 3,000 views. Someone posted it to Reddit. The comments were a mix of, "This guy's my hero," and, "Wait, you can do that legally?" Yes, yes, I could. And just when I thought it couldn't get juicier, my phone rang. "Unknown number. Hi, is this Nolan Briggs?" the voice asked. "This is Marla from Channel 8 Local. We'd like to do a piece on the situation with your gate." I sipped my tea. Paused. "Sure," I said, "but only if you bring your own lawn chair." And I'm not wearing a tie because things were about to go public and the HOA had no clue they were about to star in their very own primetime train wreck. 3 days after the news piece aired, where I notably didn't say a single word on camera but just nodded stoically while Duke licked his paws in the background, I received a letter from the HOA's new attorney, not the one who once accused my chicken coop of being a visual threat to harm me. No, this guy was new, fancy, and apparently paid by the paragraph. The letter was full of delightful nonsense, phrases like undue hardships, community cohesion risk, and my personal favorite, spiritual disruption of neighborhood unity. They demanded I take down the gate and cease toll hostilities immediately. I responded the way any red-blooded landowner with a notarized survey, 3 high-definition cameras, and a petty streak would. I printed an invoice, a real one, formal letterhead. Itemized charges for every unauthorized crossing since day one, attached stills of license plates, screenshots of HOA chat leaks, and for dramatic flair, a copy of the crayon map they'd submitted as legal evidence. The total, $24,000, 0 cents, taped it to a clipboard, slid it into a big yellow envelope, marched down to the beige clubhouse with Duke trotting behind me, and dropped it straight into the HOA mailbox with a sticky note. "Payment due in 10 business days. Late fees apply. Warmest regards, Nolan." And then the cracks started showing. Word got around fast. The neighborhood Facebook group exploded. Someone uploaded a video taken through the clubhouse blinds, Karen screaming at Gerald in the parking lot. Something about, "You said it was just a gate, and I told you Google Maps wasn't admissible in court." The best part? Gerald tried to storm off dramatically, caught his foot on a folding chair, and went down like a sack of potatoes. 3 phones caught it. One in slow-mo. The clip was titled, "Gerald's Great Escape," and had over 80,000 views by sundown. People stopped seeing the gate as a petty land squabble. It became a symbol, a turf war, a small-town saga with an underdog and a collapsing regime. Some residents even started asking if they could pay the toll early, just in case. One neighbor, Mrs. Ellison, baked me a pie and said, "I don't even like you that much, Nolan, but I like them even less." Fair enough. But the biggest shift came quietly, a knock on my door. 3 neighbors I didn't know well, 2 dads in cargo shorts, and a woman who worked at the county DMV stood holding a clipboard. Not the HOA kind, a real one, with signatures. "We're starting a petition," one of them said, "to break off from the HOA, create our own neighborhood group. Thought you might want to co-chair it." I didn't answer right away. Just leaned back in my porch chair, looked past them at the metal gate still locked and proud under the noon sun. They thought they'd drawn a boundary. Instead, they drew a battle line. And now, the town was choosing sides. By sunrise on day 17, the battle had gone from lawn signs and Facebook memes to actual paperwork. My kind of war. I'd filed the official petition with the county zoning board, a request to reclassify the road cutting through my land as a private easement, revoke all unauthorized access by the HOA, and declare their padlock stunt as trespassing with intent. It wasn't dramatic. No courtroom speech, just a stack of files, a signature, and a quiet manila folder that could burn their whole empire to the ground. By noon, things had shifted. The wind, the tone, the way neighbors looked at me. They didn't wave out of politeness anymore. They nodded like soldiers acknowledging a general. I wasn't just Nolan with the goats and the grudge. I was the guy who stood his ground. One by one, people started showing up. A man in a dusty Ford brought a new set of hinges. "Thought your gate could use some reinforcements," he said, like offering someone armor. A teenage girl who once dinged my mailbox with a basketball came over with sidewalk chalk and asked if she could help re-raw the boundary lines on a printed map. I gave her the good markers. The irony was delicious. The HOA had spent years measuring the length of grass blades and the color of porch paint, and now folks were rebuilding the neighborhood map with crayons and handshakes. No lawyers, no clipboards, just decency. Then came the committee, not the HOA. This was different. They called themselves the No Karen Committee. No bylaws, no fines, no mandatory visor policy, just 5 volunteers who agreed the community should be run by common sense and neighborly behavior, not power trips in pastel polos. They made buttons, real ones. No Karen zone. Someone even slapped one on Duke's collar. He wore it like a sheriff. Meanwhile, HOA leadership was unraveling like cheap blinds in a hurricane. Karen had gone dark on Facebook. Gerald was reportedly trying to convince his cousin to sell him a fishing cabin in Missouri. Deborah, last seen rage quit in a neighborhood email thread with the subject line, "Good luck managing your own trash pickup. We've managed just fine, thanks." But amidst the barbecue victories and toll calculations, there was one moment I didn't expect. Just after sunset, the gravel path to my gate crunched under unfamiliar shoes. I looked up. It was her, Karen. The glasses, no sunglasses, no clipboard, no khakis sharpened to weapon-grade creases. Just jeans, a worn T-shirt that said, "Yoga is cheaper than therapy," and eyes that didn't scan for violations. They searched for mercy. She stopped 5 feet from the gate. I didn't move. "We were wrong," she whispered. No smugness, no PR spin, just a quiet sentence that hung in the air like a truce flag made of regret. And here's the thing. I didn't smile. I didn't gloat. I just listened. Because deep down, we both knew something was ending and something else was starting. It came in a plain envelope, no bells, no sirens, just the quiet kind of authority that doesn't need to yell. The county's final ruling. Full reclassification of the access road, deeded and certified. In my name. No appeals, no wiggle room, just black and white proof that the dirt they'd tried to dominate was never theirs to begin with. And now, it was mine. Legally, permanently, gloriously mine. The fallout was instant. The HOA, once a self-declared empire of clipboards and passive-aggressive flyers, crumbled faster than a papier-mâché gazebo in a thunderstorm. Karen officially resigned in a group email no one replied to. Her signature line read, "Former Vice President, Community Enrichment," a title now more ironic than her candle business called Serenity Now. Gerald ghosted the whole neighborhood. Last sighting, pumping gas in a hoodie and sunglasses like a disgraced pop star. Deborah's house listed quietly with a motivated seller tag. Nobody asked why. The funny thing, there was no grand celebration, no victory parade, just slow, steady change. One day, someone painted a mural on the side of my old barn. It showed me, coffee mug in hand, Duke at my feet, and a wooden sign overhead that read, "Private Road, Community Heart." I didn't ask who painted it. I didn't need to. The real shift happened in how people acted. The HOA's old laws disappeared, and no one missed them. Mailboxes went unmeasured. Lawn heights became a matter of sunlight and laziness, not regulation. Someone fixed the playground without a committee vote. Kids played until dark. No one filed a noise complaint. Instead of HOA meetings, folks brought lemonade and folding chairs to my porch and talked about things that actually mattered. Fencing, droughts, who had extra eggs. That Sunday, I replaced the toll sign with something simpler, a piece of hand-carved cedar hung just above the gate and said, "Welcome, knock first, bring pie." I meant it too. That pie part wasn't a joke. And Claire, she didn't vanish entirely. One morning she dropped off a tray of banana bread and didn't say a word, just left it by the gate like an offering. I didn't eat. Duke sniffed it first, just to be safe. But I kept the note. For what it's worth, I wish we'd listened sooner. You think this is where the story ends? Not quite. Because what started as a trap turned into a movement. A reminder that if you build on someone's land without asking, don't be surprised when they turn the soil beneath your feet. But if you ask, if you show up, pitch in, knock first, and maybe bring dessert, you just might help build something real. This land was mine on paper now, sure, but more importantly, it had become ours in spirit. Not HOA property, not a grid of silent rules and louder punishments, just neighbors with stories, scars, and a shared fence line. So, no, it didn't end at the gate. It started there. And the best part? There's always room for one more chair on the porch, just knock first. Here's the truth this whole ridiculous saga taught me. Sometimes the strongest gate isn't made of steel. It's made of boundaries, patience, and receipts. In a world obsessed with instant clapbacks and social media outrage, there's power in playing the long game. You don't need to shout to win. You need facts, a plan, and maybe a well-placed BBQ. This story wasn't just about land. It was about pushing back smartly when the system forgets who it's messing with. So if someone's trying to lock you out of what's rightfully yours, don't panic. Sip your coffee, check your paperwork, and let them bury themselves in their own arrogance. You love this journey, or yelled yes at any point, hit that like button, drop your wildest HOA moment in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe for more tales where justice wears boots, not blazers. Stay sharp, stay kind, and always bring pie.